This program is brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana. At some point in one's life, there comes retirement, the point where there's no longer active employment. That point for most people is when they are 60 years old. This means that regular income from employment also ceases. For many, this is when they start receiving their monthly pension payments if they were fortunate enough to have a pension fund set up. Sadly, this is when financial problems start to loom because their lifestyles are not aligned with what they're getting from their pension benefits. Furthermore, statistics have shown that more than 60% of retirees in Botswana live in abject poverty. This highlights, amongst other things, a need to look into solutions that can help retirees, especially those with pension benefits, with a way to increase their income. To talk to just that, we have SCI founder and managing director, James Fern. James, thank you so much for coming on First Issues and affording us your time. It's a pleasure having you on our platform. We are talking today about retirement planning, but more so around options that are there for retirees to increase their income. But first, let us understand what retirement planning is and when the right time is that one can start planning for retirement.
Okay, so the question is, let's understand what retirement planning is. In order to understand that, what do we mean by retirement? Yeah, and in Botswana, we've got this issue of not quite being sure about what we mean by retirement. What a lot of people mean by retirement is when they cash in their pension fund, when they retire from their main job. So I retire from government. I take my pension, I take my 1/3 out, and I start earning my gratuity. But am I retired at that point? At, let's say, 55 or even 60? Well, at that point, if we're still able to work, we can go back into the workforce, we can become a consultant, we can maybe start our own small business or something like that. We're not retired. Okay, so retirement, the thought of retirement is being able to sustain ourselves without working. If we are still working, we're not retired. Yeah. Now, the saying that we have is the best gift you can give your grandchildren is to be financially independent in retirement. So being financially independent in retirement is having enough assets and income to afford our standard of living without having to go out and work. So what do we do if we haven't got that income coming in? What do we do if we haven't got those assets to provide that income? Well, we've got no choice. We have to go out and do some work. Now, what retirement planning is thinking ahead while we are young enough, while we're earning, to put aside some of our income for that time so that we can be financially independent in retirement. Okay, so financial planning, retirement planning, which is what we do here at SCI, is thinking ahead and saying, okay, how much of my money, how much of my income should I be putting away to pay my future self, paying me in the future to not have to work? All right. Now, we've got a rule of thumb for that. A rule of thumb meaning that just a rough estimate. So you take your age. So I'm currently 47. You divide that by 2. 47 divided by 2, 23 and a bit, 23 and a half. So I need to save 23% of my income for my old age. Mm-hmm. So I need to be taking, if I earn 100 pula, I can spend 73 pula, I need to save 23 pula. And I need to put that away into either a financial asset or into a business or into a property in order that I can survive when I'm no longer able to work. All right. So that's retirement planning. It's thinking ahead. What strategies can I use to save the money that I'm earning now for my retirement age? When do you start planning? Okay, so when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, because then we'd have some shade today. Yeah. The second best time to plant a tree is today. Yeah. So if you don't start doing some saving, putting some money aside, if you don't start thinking about it, if you don't start doing that plan, when are you ever going to get started? Okay. So what most people find is that they start planning way too late. And if you consider that if you're in debt, you've already made your future self poorer. Yeah? So we're talking about retirement planning, we're talking about making your future self wealthier, having some assets so that then you don't have to be dependent on your children when you're retired, and your children can then focus on their children. And that's what we mean by the best gift you can give your grandchildren is to be financially independent in your old age. Because then we can break the cycle, and your children can pass on wealth to their children and can invest in their education. So then we get out of this culture of dependency.
Statistics show that 60% of retirees in Botswana live in abject poverty, and this has been shown in part to be due to them failing to reframe their minds to the new reality of living with a pension or on a pension payment. How do you think the right mindset shift can be encouraged or even supported to help them make this transition successfully?
If you get to 65 years old and you haven't done any planning and you're at net zero, you don't really own any assets, you've got no option. You're poor. You are dependent. The state will give you a little bit. Perhaps your children will look after you, but you are dependent if you haven't done any planning by that stage. Because when you get to 65, who's going to employ a 65-year-old? Yeah? And if you're going to start a little business, well, the 25-year-old starting that same business will outcompete you easily because they've got 10 times the energy that you've got at 65. So you get to 65 and you haven't done any planning. There's not a lot of options. So you start planning now when you've got some time. Okay. But people think, well, I'm going to retire at 55. They retire at 55, but they don't stop work. So that's not retirement. At 55, they take on a new lease of life. And they start to work perhaps the side business that they had when they were employed or what have you. And they start to take money seriously. They haven't got this constant income coming in anymore. So they start to do a proper budget, start to be taking account of where the money goes out to. They start to plan sensibly. They start to realize that I need to have money put aside for when I'm old. So they start saving. But by the time you're 55, it's too late to save enough. You need to save throughout your lifetime in order to build up the assets to retire comfortably, to be able to stop work and live off your money. So if you're a member of a pension fund, and there are a couple of good pension funds provided by government, provided by some of the big corporations, they force you to save 20% of your income. You don't notice it, it comes off your payslip. They force you to do that. But 85% of us don't work for those organizations. Yeah? So we have to do it ourselves. We haven't got Big Brother telling us you have to put this away. We have to wake up and have this mindset to say, yeah, I'm 40, I need to put away 20% of my income. Every time I earn 100 pula, I'm going to save 20 of it. I'm going to invest 20 of it. I get to 50, that needs to go up to 25%. And we put that away, and yes, it enables us to help our children and our grandchildren perhaps. But the real reason that we're putting it away is to stop us being dependent, self-sufficient, independent in old age.
You keep mentioning assets. Perhaps at this point you could define what that is. I mean, in some people's minds, an asset is just, a plot that is there. And another person, they might think that that assets are their expensive cars. And then somebody else might think that that asset is, maybe some savings that they have. So at this point, I'd like for you to clarify and give examples of what you mean an asset to be.
Quite simply, an asset is something that either earns you an income or goes up in value over time. So the big problem that most salaried people have is that they want to drive a flashy car. So they go out and they buy let's say they buy $1 million Pula car. Yeah. They go into debt to do that, and they pay it over 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And the bank's charging them interest. So the bank's charging them 20% per year for borrowing that money. But at the same time, that vehicle is depreciating in value, going down in value. So it goes down from it goes down from $1 million Pula. First of all, you lose the VAT. You've paid 12% VAT to the government. As soon as you sign the paperwork, before you even touch the car, you've lost that. It's gone. It's now a second-hand car. You've lost the VAT. As soon as you drive it off the forecourt, it's now a used vehicle. It's worth 10% less than a new vehicle. So you lose 22% the first day that you buy that car. Then, every year, it goes down in value by 10%. If you've got $1 million Pula vehicle and it's going down by 10%, 10% of $1 million Pula is 100,000 Pula. That's just in the depreciation of the vehicle. Add on to that the interest that you pay to the bank. Add on to that the fact that every morning that car wakes you up and says, come on, get up, go to work, earn the money to fuel me, to pay my insurance, to pay my maintenance, all of these things. It's like a millstone around our neck. And we think of these things, these flashy bits of metal, as an asset. They're absolutely not. Yeah? So an asset is something that goes up in value or something that earns me an income. So a plot just sits there. But when I put a house on that plot and I rent that plot out, I rent that house out, it's suddenly an asset. It's giving me an income. Yeah? So there's a difference there between a plot, which isn't an asset. Anybody can get a plot for free. Yeah. And putting a house on it, putting a property on it, which is going to earn me an income. And there's a good chance then that property will go up in value as well. Okay. But the main source of that is rental income. The other types of assets are financial assets. Shares in a company, stocks, or lending, debt, secure debt, bonds. So these are financial assets that you can have. Cash in the bank tends to earn you very little interest. So if you're lucky, sort of 2-3% interest per year. Whereas inflation at 10%, that cash in the bank, yes, it's an asset, but it's not really, it's only earning you a tiny, tiny bit of income. So you've got to do something with that. Okay. So that's what I mean by assets. Accumulate assets to make yourself wealthier over your lifetime. There's a large percentage of people that leave employment at 0. Or even worse, they owe more than they own. 50% of the planet is on negative assets. So if you've got 1 Pula and no debt, you're already richer than half the population of the planet.
So then let us get to the crux of why we're here, which is, the options that exist for retirees to increase their income. What are those, if you care to share?
If you're old, there aren't very many options. Yeah? Because you're going to be outcompeted by the young. Yeah? So, first of all, do some planning. But if you're between, let's say, 55 and 70. You've got some energy there. You've got some determination there. What are you going to do? Well, first of all, you've got to live within your means. If you've got some pension coming in, you've got a little bit of retirement income, get rid of the idea that you can live like you had before when you were earning 10 times that income. Make sure you live within your means. But now you can start to say, all right, I'm going to start a little business. But you've got to be really, really careful. Yeah? Because the young will always outcompete the old. Always. The only advantage the old have are experience and knowledge. So, during your lifetime, you accumulate experience, you accumulate knowledge, you get some value to yourself. Well, if you're 55, get back into the workforce. Your skills are valuable. Somebody will employ you at 55. They're unlikely to employ you at 65. Okay. Yeah. If you've got money in the bank, you've got to find a way of getting some decent interest on it. We'd recommend using a money market fund. So there are, I think, 6 money market funds in Botswana. Come and have a chat to one of our advisors and we'll point you in the right direction and which one is best for you. Those are currently yielding sort of 5 to 6% per year. Okay? But that's better than the bank interest of 2 to 3%. Yeah? And you can invest in one of those money market funds from as little as 10,000 pula. So that's a way of getting you some reasonable interest on your money. But you've got to be careful with your money. Don't lose it. When you're in retirement, when you're old, you can't afford to take the risks that you took when you were young because you haven't got the time to earn back any losses. So talk to a financial planner, talk to an investment advisor, but make sure that they understand your financial position so that then you're doing sensible things with your money. If you're pre-retirement, if you're just coming up to the age where you're about to take your pension, come and get some advice. It's critical. It's the biggest purchasing decision that you'll make outside of buying a house. So when you come to retirement age at your pension fund, you've built up money within that pension fund. 1/3 of it you can take as a tax-free lump sum. The other 2/3 buy an income for life. That purchase of an income for life is critical. Because once you've purchased it, there's no going back. So come and get some advice and talk about ways that you can tailor-make that to your financial circumstances. What's the best way of taking that income for life from your pension? There are some options pre-retirement where there aren't so many options after you have retired.
Can you speak to those options that you've just spoken of?
Okay, so it depends on what pension fund you're in as to what your options are. Yeah. And I'm just talking generally now. But there are, the basic income for life is an annuity, a fixed income. So you might put in 1 million pula and they'll give you a fixed rate of, let's say, 6% per year. That will vary, that rate varies according to how old you are, yeah, how much longer you are likely to live. So, but let's say for the sake of argument it's 6%, that's 0.5% per month. If you've got 1 million pula, that's buying you 5,000 pulas worth of income per month. Okay, that's a flat rate. You might want a guaranteed annuity, so that even if you passed away, it would carry on paying out for a fixed period of time. If you want that, the rate goes down. You might want an escalating annuity. So it might start at one rate and then go up by a few percentage points to keep pace with inflation every year. Again, if you want that option, your starting rate goes down. And then finally, there's a concept of a living annuity. And there's we have our first living annuities here in Botswana, where you are not just giving away your money to buy the income, you are investing in a living annuity, you are then drawing down on your capital, and you can choose the rate of income that you take between 2.5% and 12.5% per year. But be careful. If you're taking 12% from your capital, you're going to erode your assets. Yeah? So you need some solid financial planning advice from a regulated financial planning firm like SCI.
program was brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?